I know it sounds a little extreme to say something like that, but it's honestly true. I'm an English minor, currently in my sophomore year of college, and I'm currently enrolled in 3 English courses. And you're probably wondering, if I'm so bad at reading, why am I choosing to be an English minor? Well, I mean, I want to get better. I've always been a film kid. I could watch pretty much any movie and give you like a relatively good analysis as to why I think it would be a good movie. But with books, see, I know when I read a good book, but I can't exactly write like a 10-page paper on why I think it's a good book. I never really did much reading when I grew up. I was always kind of like a video game kid. And that's honestly probably one of my like biggest regrets today, is that I finally started getting into reading recently, like as recent as this year. And I love reading comic books, but at least with comics, it's like offering a visual aid. I've always kind of seen it as like this movie on paper. I've probably read more in this past year than I have read in like my entire life. And by taking these English courses, it's kind of given me a good excuse to read more books. One of the classes I take is this queer literature class, which has given me a good array of books that I probably would never have heard of if it wasn't for that class. I initially took the course because I knew it would fill this core requirement that I needed to graduate. But the course honestly pleasantly surprised me. And it probably, at this point in my life or college career, has ended up being one of the most important classes I've taken so far. See, one of my closest friends, Jake, who, if you know me, of course you know who he is, and if you're familiar with any of my past film work, you've probably seen him in that too, has recently come to terms with his sexuality. By reading these different queer texts, it has helped me to understand that what I said was wrong. Hi, future me talking to present you, talking about past me. At this point in the conversation, I talk a lot about empathy, which I believe I bring up later in the conversation, or maybe during this part, I don't know, but the entire point I'm trying to sell is that I can't empathize, because I haven't gone through that same experience. What I'm trying to say is that the books have helped me better understand that experience, but not fully empathize. So just wanted to clear that up. I was sitting here looking back on it, and I just wasn't sitting right with me. So I think that cleared up. Anyways, back to past me. Out of all the books that we looked at over the course of the semester, the one that stood out to me particularly was James Baldwin's novel, Giovanni's Room. Basically, if you aren't familiar with the book, it's about this American in Paris, David, not Gene Kelly, who has an affair with this Italian bartender named Giovanni. When the affair had begun, David had just proposed to his girlfriend, so naturally this led to turmoil in his relationship with both Giovanni and also his own sexuality. I really love this book. And I know that's a strong statement, like saying that I suck at reading, but it's honestly hard to explain why. See, like with a movie like La La Land, I could sit here and talk about it for hours and explain why it's my favorite movie. And it's not one of my favorite movies because I think it's like the modern day version of Citizen Kane, but it's how the movie makes me feel. I could turn it on when I'm having a bad day, or I could turn it on when I'm having the greatest day ever. And it sort of just makes me feel this heightened version of that whatever emotion I'm going through that day. And I could honestly sit here for hours, like I said, and kind of talk about La La Land, but I'd rather show you this one passage from Giovanni's Room. Giovanni had awakened an itch, had released a gnaw in me. David and Giovanni obviously share this very intimate connection, which then allows David's internal desires to be unfolded. But when he was confronted by a bunch of people in the bar that he met Giovanni in earlier in the novel, he denied feeling any sort of feelings for Giovanni. This proves that whenever he's in Giovanni's presence, David always finds it hard to control himself. In Garth Greenwall's article in The Guardian, he talks about how the novel is this entire dissection of shame, and how shame could damage an individual. In these few lines, David finally showcases this lack of shame. He acknowledges his sexuality as this itch he's dying to scratch. Later on that same page, David goes on to describe his connection to Giovanni in these words. I felt myself flow towards him, as a river rushes when the ice breaks up. When we talked about this scene in class, one of my classmates had a really good dissection of this scene. I've been talking for so long. Anyways, back to the book. They compared the feeling and speed to finally discovering your sexuality to this sort of rush of water. David continues on and says this. The beast which Giovanni had awakened in me would never go to sleep again. But one day I would not be with Giovanni anymore. And would I then, like all the others, find myself turning and following all kinds of boys down God knows what dark avenues, into what dark places? That same itch that David had talked about earlier has turned into this beast, which could potentially be untamable. He then compares himself to other men with similar desires, claiming that they all go down this sort of same dark path. See, I told you I was trying to get better. Did I do good? Oh, thank you. Anyways, while reading this story about self-realization, I couldn't help notice some of the parallels between the book and some stories Jake had told me in his journey. So I thought it would be a fun idea to sit him down and kind of introduce him to Giovanni's Room. He'd expressed interest in reading it in the past, but once he finally said he wanted to read it, I told him that he should wait so I could bring you all along for the ride. So do you know anything about Giovanni's?
I don't. I just know from what you've told me so far about the book, but I read maybe like a couple pages of it in the beginning, but that was about it.
Yeah. So like this, you want to know the summary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you have to tell me.
All right. So basically, the main character David.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you're gonna read from that little thing to that little thing.
Okay.
All right.
You
don't have to read it out loud.
Are you sure? I mean, I can.
No,
I don't care.
No.
Okay. I can't. Okay. I feel like it's just awkward if I don't.
Yeah, it's fine.
You don't really? Damn. That was good. It's kind of depressing. But...
So this is like the first part in the book where like the main character David sort of like, wow, like I actually like find other dudes attractive. Like I'm in love with Giovanni, but like, you know, like that dude on the street's like looking kind of cute. Like, did you ever have like that sort of like awakening?
Like a single moment that I could like remember?
Like that moment where like you kind of just like push shame out of the picture.
I feel I really got to think about this. I don't know. I feel like it took me a while for me not to be ashamed of it. I don't know if there was like a like defining moment. I feel like just like me, like a lot of people like starting to accept me for it, like kind of built up that confidence and put away that shame. But like I was really ashamed of it at first. I feel like I just like was really like not okay with it. And then I don't know if it was like a single moment where I was like not ashamed anymore of it. I feel like it was really just like you guys like helping me through it and like just being okay with it, because that just helped me be okay with it. But I feel like once I reached that point where it was just like, okay, I'm like okay with this, then it was just like easy. Like it wasn't even that hard at that point once I was like completely okay with it.
David kind of like has this sort of like identity crisis once he like kind of cracks the code on like himself. So like would you say you empathize with David and just the identity part?
Yeah,
I don't know, I don't think you know anything else about him.
No, I don't. I would say yeah, I had an identity for sure, because I feel like I didn't really know who I was at that point. Like because once I figured it out, there were no other thoughts in my head except, oh my God, you're gay. Like every single second of the day was just like constantly thinking about it. So I wasn't thinking about any other part of myself except that one part. And then once I started like talking to people, like I started to realize that I had all these other parts to myself rather than just this part, which is crazy. I know. Weird, right? But in my own head, it was just like my defining feature. Like it was like the only thing that people will ever see about me for the rest of my life. And like it sucked. And like I feel like nowadays, like there are a lot of people that like make it a lot about themselves, like, and like sometimes I understand it. Like before I didn't really understand it, but now I understand it more, because a lot of people spend their whole lives in the closet, and now they've reached a point where all they want to do is just do whatever they want. So like I understand it, but like for me, I feel like I'm not gonna make it like a defining feature. Like it's just like, yeah, like I just happen to be gay, but like it's whatever. But I feel like when I first confronted it, it was just like everyone's just gonna know me as a gay kid. Like that's how it's gonna be, and like I hated that. Like I didn't want that. I guess the beast inside me, I guess when I came out, was just I'm a lot more like okay with some of the shit I say. Like I used to be really scared of like telling people how I feel, just because like I was scared they wouldn't like me because of it. But now I don't really care if people don't like me anymore. So I guess that's kind of like a beast in a way, where it's like just like this like this like sense of confidence that just comes out of nowhere, and it just like makes you realize that like nothing matters anymore. So I guess that can kind of be a metaphorical beast in a way.
So I'm currently sitting on the floor because why not? I'm working on this for about a week now, or at least long enough to grow out my little mustache. And I'm really tired. Not from this, but I'm just tired in general. My hair is not really done, so excuse that. This has probably been the most different conversation project I've done so far. This is actually a final for one of my classes, so shout out to my queer lit class, obviously. But I'm sitting down now to close out this discussion, kind of just with like my thoughts. I had talked to Jake earlier in the day, which you all just watched, and it was honestly like a really great discussion. I'm glad he liked the book. I'm glad he liked the passage that I showed him. This whole thing was honestly just a great learning experience for me. But if I were to close it out with one of my now kind of traditional like statements, I would say maybe the lesson is don't be so hard on yourself. You know, I say I suck at reading, but with some work, I was able to pull out a pretty good analysis out of that small passage. This is probably one of the most different things I've made in a while, partly because it's for a class, but I don't know. I also just kind of want to change it up. Whatever I make in the future is probably going to go back to my traditional style, but also like with new techniques and whatnot. I don't know. Anyways, my professor's probably checked out by now, and I kind of just wanted to close out this discussion with a couple of my thoughts. I didn't want to end it too abruptly with that closing statement from Jake, which thanks for doing that, Jake. I know you're probably watching this. But anyways, if you guys want to stick around, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, whatever. I don't really care. Well, actually, I do care, but anyways, I'll talk to you guys soon.